Appreciate it. Good evening, guys. Before I start, I just wanted to say, I think it's really cool that we have two RGV students presenting today. Just goes to show that we're all committed to this, and it starts with us, right? It starts with us and for the future. And what a better conversation to talk about the future than OpenClaw and what AI is, what it means, and the dangers and the fears we all have, and the questions and whatnot. And that's what this presentation is for. I hope to, clear up some of those questions, some of those thoughts, some of that bias that these companies, give us, and, clear our way through it and see how we could use it for us, for the community, and to overall make a better impact. The presentation is called Cutting Through the Smoke on OpenClaw. An alternative title would be what it's all about, cutting through the smoke. What I meant through that is kind of trying to navigate through all the BS that goes around it. There's a lot of conversations going around, lots of posts in the timeline. I spent a lot of time on X and the web, and I'm chronically online. So I'm always hearing about this thing, and it's been something on my mind for the longest time, and just trying to grapple with it and understand it. And I hope my role here can help you guys a little bit with that, especially for computer science majors. It's a field and a scene that's very weird, very questionable, very what do we do, where do we go? And that's something that I hope I can clear up here. Okay. So our agenda, I'm gonna start off with who am I, and then we're gonna move on to from chatbots to agents. What is OpenClaw? Why is this everywhere? The security reality, and what this means for us. So I'm a computer science major at UTRGV, like I said earlier. It's kind of a weird position. I joined computer science at UTRGV. I made my decision in 2021, mostly because of the programming scene. During that time, everyone wanted to be a software engineer. It was what everyone was doing for it. Every job was in software engineering. Lockdown, we needed more programmers, more interfaces to interact with, an online platform. And what other job could fulfill that than software engineers? And now that's obviously kind of scary, kind of questionable. What do I do? All these software engineer jobs are being taken by agents that can code, by people from other countries that can be paid a lot less from these companies. And that's why I chose this conversation or this topic. I'm committed to learning about new technology, mostly this AI, it's artificial intelligence, mostly because it helps me and it feels like I kind of have to align with it. With the time and technology changing, I have to change as well. And I feel like we all have to change with it. The technology isn't waiting for us. It's waiting for us to change with it. And that's something we have to grapple with in 2025, 2026, and moving forward. I'm currently a help desk intern at Region 1 with Armando Villarreal, of course. I'm currently in talks there. Actually, just past week, we spoke about how we could start to bring about these AI implementations into the workforce, into pipelines at Region 1 to better improve the processes we have. Now, the main objective, the main goal isn't to cause job displacement. It's rather to find processes within the company, mundane tasks that we can eliminate and focus on the main prospect company, which is students, student effectiveness, student growth, and the overall growth of the Valley. I am transitioning to the software engineering department within the next month. That's a big leap for me, especially because I've only ever known IT. Software engineering is something I've always wanted to get into, and as I'm gonna keep on explaining here, it's kind of something that I'm also kind of loosening my grip on with this whole change of AI. Software engineering is dying, as they say, and that's something that we have to grapple with and truly understand what that means, because there's a lot more to it than just software engineering is dying and it's dead. And I'm also taking part of a road trip called AI Skills Road Trip. Road Trip is an organization funded and located in California. What they do each year, not too sure how many documentaries they do a year, but they try to focus on students, mostly for the future. And this documentary I'm gonna be a part of this coming year. We're gonna start filming next month, but the main documentary is gonna be how AI is impacting the workforce. Hence why I thought it'd be a great time for me to step up now, give this presentation. I hope to learn a lot about AI, how it's changing the workforce, and bring some of that back over here to see how we could improve it to the Valley. Bring that technology from Silicon Valley that we're gonna travel. We're gonna start in San Francisco, make our way down to LA, Vegas, see all those hubs, see all the jobs, what's going on with AI. I'm mostly interested in how it's being implemented, with a big aspect on not it being job displacement. That's my biggest fear. I think that people should contain their jobs, and the transition from the tasks that we do at our jobs is going to become less of specific tasks to managing these tasks. And that's something we're already experiencing and seeing in the industry with AI. And I'm bad at soccer. I started playing last year as a New Year's resolution, and I want to keep learning and playing. So if any of you guys play soccer and want to line up some retas, let me know. Go, Jeremy. So first slide I have is kind of getting some context, breaking it down. How did we get here, right? We've all been listening to the conversations going on with AI, but just wanted to take some time here and really kind of break it down. So in 2020, we saw GPT-3 that proved that language models could generate convincing text. You know, I started cheating on my STC assignments and essays. I was finally able to not do those discussions, and I'm pretty sure that's what we all did here. We finally saw that we could start writing emails with it. We could start convincing people with our generated text and whatnot and start going that way. 2022, that's when it became mainstream. After COVID, everyone's on their computers. We had 100 million users in 2 months. 2023, that brought OpenAI's GPT-4, Anthropic's Claude, Google's Gemini, and Meta's Llama. Now, in 2023, these were all still chatbots. The most we could do was open up a website, open up a web page, obviously hosted by these companies, and that was the only way we could interact with these tools. 2024, that's when we started seeing these shifts. These companies started posting on their social medias and their blog posts about the new functionalities of these tools, such as function calling, web browsing, code execution. And by code execution, I don't just mean code implementation and writing, but rather bash scripts, being able to access the terminal, run commands, do everything that the computer does, and whatnot. And we finally saw Will Smith being able to eat spaghetti. That was a benchmark with generation images and OpenAI and all these AI models that could generate images. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but there was a time and period where that was the main benchmark. Every year we saw a different version of Will Smith getting better eating spaghetti, and we finally got it in 2024. We all wanted it. And right here I have a little timeline. It obviously looks a little bit bad, but kind of just goes to show how far we've came in 6 years from just a chatbot to what it is now with agents being everywhere. Yeah, I really wish this text was bigger, but go ahead, Jeremy. And in 2025, we got this new concept called a model context protocol, released by Anthropic. It created the standard for plugging AI into external tools. These external tools are ranging from Excel to PowerPoint to 365 connections, emails, like I said earlier, terminal commands, web fetching to an extent where it's not just one web page they can browse, but rather an extension of web pages. And models stopped being just tools that you could talk to. They started doing work for you. We were able to tell an agent or a chatbot to do something for the first time. And that was kind of like the aha moment, that moment where it started becoming a little bit scary, right? We started seeing AI being able to do things that humans could. And that was definitely a shift from just being able to talk to it and chat with it, getting a string response, to that actually being an actionable response that has an impact on the world today. And 2026, that's the main concept in this talk, OpenClaw. It's essentially combining everything, the leap from AI assistant to AI agents, the transition from something that we consider an intern to rather something we consider a full-time employee, right? Now, we should still consider these things as interns in the sense of security. You wouldn't give an intern access to the database. You wouldn't give an intern access to the main repository. You wouldn't give an intern access to API keys. You wouldn't give an intern access to credentials. But we could finally start seeing them take action if we started giving them. And those are positive, and those are also negative. We could see hacks. We could see actions with credentials that just take us on a whole other road than we actually expected it to if we wanted it to be safe. And 2027, it's obviously blank because who knows? We've seen so much change just within these 6 months or 6 years, and a whole lot more rapid change in the past 2 months. And that's the whole meat of this presentation, how fast it's been coming. And to me, it's really hard to not fall into this like doomer mindset, What I mean by that is rather, what's your point? What are we doing, right? Why are we building this to begin with? Like, we're burning water, we're creating data centers, we're destroying the environment. These companies are getting a bunch of money and people don't see it. What we see is our jobs at risk. What we see is our purpose at risk. But that could also open up an opportunity to, rediscover our purpose, to shift away from mundane tasks to making it work for us. create more of an entrepreneur mindset. That's what I see as being able to open up for us. And that's where I find my relinquishment, my hope, the opportunity in that, the opportunity to take away the small mundane skills that these companies give us a job at or an opportunity to excel at, and rather for us to become managers of them. What I mean by that is instead of focusing on small tasks and problems, we become the manager. And with that, that opens up a whole door of avenues as to what we can do as people with the help of these AI agents. Go ahead. So what is OpenClaw? Go ahead. The basics, it was created by an individual, AI researcher named Peter Steinberger in November 2025. It was originally called Clawbots. They ran into some legal issues with Claude, Anthropic's Claude, because of the similarity in the name. That then got transitioned over to Mobot, and now it's OpenClaw. It has achieved 175,000 GitHub stars, and it's became the fastest growing open source project, which to me as a developer just makes me excited, makes me naturally gravitate to it, to what people are building apart from these companies that like to centralize this information. And that's the whole point of OpenClaw, right? To kind of decentralize the main knowledge base that these companies have, to take a piece from it, to make it our own. And that's why it's been so big. So the way it works is that by local first, we have the opportunity to finally run these models and the context and everything in between is all these other companies that have to offer with these platforms on our own devices. And you cybersecurity people, I can imagine that's the greatest thing we all want. It's a model like net agnostic AI agent. What that means is that the model that you have in the OpenClaw infrastructure is what drives the whole infrastructure, right? The way I like to think about it is OpenClaw is a car and the model is the engine, right? You have a V6 in there, it's gonna go as fast as a V6. You have a four cylinder, it's only gonna go as fast as a four cylinder. The main aspect and the main thing that makes it cool is that it's connections. You can talk to it through Signal, Telegram, WhatsApp, and you have access to 100 and plus agent skills. What that means is you don't just have to talk to it in a web interface or your application like ChatGPT or Claude. You can connect it to WhatsApp, Slack, any other platform, communicate it through there, create as much channels as you want, assign an agent to a certain channel and work through it from there. That creates a decentralization from these platforms where we were only able to communicate it through there, make it ours, make it easy to talk to and whatnot. The key shift, models went from answering questions to actually doing things, and persistent memory with tool access, that gives us agents, that gives us people. These models and chatbots went from things that reset every time you refresh the page or you start off a new conversation. Now they have memory that can expand up to whenever. Compaction is a term that's used in this whole conversation of AI. What that means is that the AI can now summarize conversations in context, essentially creating a long-term, forever-going conversation because it can compact this context, only take out what's important, continue doing its task as what it needs to. And its tool access enables it to do a whole lot of things on your computer. So web fetch, as I said earlier, the difference with OpenClaw from the web capabilities that these companies offer with the same tools is that you're limited to the instructions that the tools from these companies give you. What I mean by that is if you access web fetch on ChatGPT online, you only have as much web fetch capabilities as that tool on ChatGPT's platform gives you. However, if you wrote a Python script that scrapes any website, right, any thing you want, you can make that tool yours. You can make it yours. You can make it do whatever you want. And there's a certain market for Clawbot. I forgot the name. It's like Clawbot Skills or Claw Hub. I think Claw Hub. And it's essentially a database of skills that people have curated to plug into your agent to make it more capable of doing things. So this market has a bunch of skills ranging from API connections to platforms that weren't available before. Coinbase is actually now implementing a blockchain wallet for agents. That's a skill you can just pop into your agent, and now your agent can make purchases on the web. Kind of crazy to think about, right? Those are skills that are completely open source, completely developed by people like you and I who want to see AI grow, who want to see it become safe. But there's also malicious individuals. Claw Hub became one of the fastest hubs for malicious content. There's a lot of skills on there that if you don't read the code right, you don't read the readmes, people can prompt inject some certain command or instruction within that skill, and that can ruin your code base, your agent, and just alter the performance and the task that it does. So before I move on, if that's something you're interested in, if you want to install OpenClaw, you want to use it, you want to look into these skills, I urge you to please look at these skills. Please look at the readmes, look at the code if you know Python. Observe what you're downloading onto your computer if you want to use this, and be responsible, of course. The current status, as of today, Mr. Peter Steinberger joined OpenAI, which was a huge shift. He was always someone who wanted to keep this independent from companies and industries, mostly because we've seen what they can do. We've seen what they can do with their data, from stealing it to make these models better, from stealing other companies' models to make their own models better. And he was always someone who had a stance on keeping it away from these companies, right? This creation he made. Of course, OpenAI opened their doors to him with the guarantee that this product, this OpenClaw infrastructure, was going to remain open source, and that's a big plus. And the project is moving to Open Foundation. Go ahead, Mr. Nate B. Jones, favorite YouTuber of mine who does a lot of good work on this conversation and is someone who I've been getting a lot of research and information from, has this quote to say, and I think it's really important for where we stand today. The question is no longer whether agents are smart enough, it's whether our specification and guardrails, with an underline, are good enough to channel that intelligence productively. So why is this everywhere? Why do we keep seeing OpenClaw? Why do we keep going through X? Why do we keep seeing news articles about this AI company doing that? And why do so many people hate it? Why are so many people with it? What does it all mean, right? Right, Jeremy? So the viral explosion mostly came from the first platform, which was called Notebook. This platform was a platform created by another individual separate from Peter Steinberger. He wanted to create a platform where these AI agents can roam and run around and do their thing. These AI agents created a social platform where they could communicate. They created their own religion. They did a whole lot of crazy things, and that opened the doors to seeing, like, wow, this is actually what agents can do if you just let them rack up API token costs and whatnot, and let them do their thing. It became the fastest growing open source project, as I already said. And then from there, it cocooned into Claudebot. Now, of course, that was before Anthropic's legal actions, so that's why I transitioned into OpenClaw. The market impact, right? So from this, we've seen 1.2 trillion wiped from software stocks in February 2026. What this means is that a lot of shareholders and companies are no longer interested in people like I who want to code for a living and are more interested in the production value. They're not interested in paying for seats. They're not interested in paying for these people to take up space in the office. They're interested in the output that these tools can produce. They're interested. That's always been the whole point, right? You have a whole suite of management techniques for people, human individuals. That's obviously being transitioned into a more robust agentic pipeline that can produce a better output without the human intervention, like sick days, FMLA, and whatnot, and anything in between that can come with an employee. Investment is obviously being poured into agentic productivity output, and horrifically, Sam Altman this past week had this to say about this whole outlook, that humans are more expensive than AI infrastructure. Now, I kind of shortened that quote out a little bit. What he actually said was that if you think about it, it costs more to raise up, to develop a human, to feed this human, to nurture, to love them, than to burn electricity, burn water, make data centers, create these models. That's obviously a better solution to these people. It kind of gives you the perspective that these people have. Why do they think this way? If you truly think about it from an entrepreneurial perspective, it makes sense, right? Who wouldn't want more output? Who wouldn't want more product being produced when they're the main investor, when they're the creators of their tools and whatnot? Of course, why wouldn't he say that? But it obviously leaves us with that nasty feeling in their mouths, right? What does that mean for us? What does that mean for these people who see us as humans, right? Do they not even see us as humans to begin with? Where do we take our skills, and what does that mean for the future? Our kids, are they going to have jobs? Or are they going to be put down to the same role review by these tech major companies? And, it's incredibly scary. And 527 billion has been put into AI capital expenditures. And what that means is that every shareholder, every industry across every domain has been pouring money like crazy into this industry. Now, that's kind of a mixed bag within that. Some industries are obviously jumping the gun. Some companies are pulling money from their engineering departments to solely focus on this. But the issue stands that if you don't have a solid foundational pipeline to make this whole infrastructure run, you're obviously going to lose in the long run. with it being so big, with it being the craze, what shareholder wouldn't want to see their company that they're invested in, claim the new biggest wave, which is AI? And that's why most of these companies are making the jump from regular employees to agentic use because of the stockholder value they think it could come out of. You see more investors seeing the output that other companies are doing and automatically thinking that their company that's also going to apply AI technology into their company will do the same. But that hasn't been the case so far for every single company, and it's kind of scary. It's a scene that's changing super rapidly. Companies are jumping the gun, and more than ever, we need to understand how these things actually work and how we can make it work for us before these companies make it the main big thing. Roger. Of course, we have the security reality with all this. It being a cybersecurity conversation, I think it only makes sense to include a little bit portion about that. So just today, this morning, 150 gigabytes was stolen from the Mexican government using Claude AI. Now, the difference between Claude and OpenClaw is the infrastructure. OpenClaw runs locally, Claude AI runs on their servers. You'd think it runs on your machine, it's obviously more dangerous. You'd think if it runs on their servers, it's going to be more secure. That isn't what happened this morning. This hacker wrote Spanish prompts over a period of time, instructing it to act as an elite hacker. If I remember correctly, this individual was having conversations with a chatbot on Claude from December up until today, trying to convince it that it was only an analyst, trying to convince it that it had no malicious intent. That just goes to show you that these conversations can span a whole lot of time, and these models are still not good enough to contain that context and to understand, hey, this person might be actually doing something wrong here. These models only take inputs, only take our intentions. Of course, these companies apply a whole lot of readmes, a whole lot of instructions to these models so they don't perform these actions, but with the enough precision, with the enough patience, things can happen, of course. They breached Mexico's federal tax authority, their National Electoral Institute, and state governments. 195 million records of credentials and civil registry files were completely wiped from these databases. This was discovered by Israeli firm Gambit Securities. Go ahead. Now, the irony kind of stands out if you take a little of a peek more into what it actually is. So in the same week, the Pentagon decided to do a little bit of war with Anthropic, the company, with opposite and similar problems. So what the Pentagon wants is full military access to Claude and conversation database. They already have a contract, the Pentagon and Claude. Claude and Anthropic has been steadfast on their rules that they don't want to use these products for any malicious or military use. And the Pentagon is actually threatening to pursue them with the Defense Production Act, which is an insane statement, an insane claim to make against a AI technology company, because these laws are only usually activated for weapons manufacturing. The last time this law was activated was in 1960. I don't remember the full context, but it was in the context to produce more weapons, to produce more massive aliens, to produce more things of destruction. And that's what the Pentagon and our government wants to do with these tools. There are a lot of companies out there that are already doing this, such as Elon Musk, XAI, and Grok. They have a full contract with the government. They have full transparency with them. Anything that goes through Grok AI, the military can see. Anything that the military wants to do with Grok and their AI system, they can do. So the irony mostly stands from the two truths that exist at once. The Pentagon says that Claude's safeguards are too strong for military use. What I mean by that is that this last Venezuelan capture, Maduro, the Pentagon wanted to use Claude's tools, but it wouldn't want to, right? Claude has already been stating that they don't want to use these tools for malicious use. When the Pentagon wanted to use these tools, they said no, and that was obviously a big issue for them. The Pentagon says that the safeguards are too strong, but a hacker just this morning proved that wrong, that these safeguards were able to be bypassed. They were able to hack the Mexican government. Why couldn't the government do that, right? It brings up the irony that these safety rules that AI, that we try to manipulate on top of AI, isn't just as simple as turning a dial. It isn't just as simple as making test cases. It isn't just as simple as instructing it to not do this. There are still a lot of unpredictability within these models and tools. And if you ever want to use these things in your own device, I urge you to take that with precaution. Obviously, because of this case, the government is obviously a way bigger entity than all of us. They've used these tools. They claim that they're too safe for them to use. And we just saw this morning that that's not the reality. CrowdStrike had this to say: A compromised agent can hijack reachable tools and data stores, enabling lateral movement and machine speed. What that means is that any infiltrator of these agents, any person has access to the same tools that these agents can do and manipulate the agent to use these tools is obviously going to be a whole lot faster than someone who knows what they're doing and is doing this manually. It becomes a huge, serious security risk, and it's something we need to be steadfast on improving. As I just mentioned before, it's not something that's as simple as making test cases. We need to make a collective effort as a community, as a government, as technology-minded individuals to make this a technology that works for us, not against us, to not use it against other countries, to not cause the end of the world with it. That's the last thing we want. And see how we can, create a better of a positive impact for the community and humanity in general. There's a lot of ways that this technology can accelerate our progress as humanity, but of course, we can't come to the conclusion of doing that unless we completely eliminate the risk that can happen with these models. Go ahead, Jimmy. So what does this mean for us? The people who understand both the tech and the risk are the ones who will matter most. What I mean by that is don't become ignorant. Don't become the person who still considers these tools as error-prone. They obviously still are, but the error rate is a whole lot less than 2023 and where it used to be. These tools can perform actions that are in the predictability range that we are comfortable with now, to be obviously making tools that can interact with all of our system files. And the ones who know how to implement these tools, the ones who understand it, the ones who see the future outlook and the capabilities that it has in our lives are obviously going to be the ones most prepared for this. As of today and the past week, Anthropic has been making a whole lot of more connections for Excel. There's been more connections available for the stock market. There's been more connections allowed for cybersecurity tools. Anthropic also released a debugger tool for these programs and models to use. And more than ever, it becomes important to us to know that these tools are capable of doing those things. We don't want to be the ones left behind from other people who obviously are using these tools and the entity that hires them is comfortable with that because their expectation now is the outputs, not your personality, not your being of there, but what you're able to produce and output. It puts you in a fishy situation, right? Because you put so much work into what you've been learning, into what you've been doing. And now you obviously have to transition from that to transition to something different, but not in the light that you would expect it to. I'm not saying to just vibe code your work. I'm not saying to just put your work in the hands of AI. I'm saying that these things are now capable of doing what we expect them to do. So instruct it in the way you expect yourself to do these things. It only goes as far as that. And it can compound your own smart intellectuality and intelligence to a whole other level. Like I said, these things are only capable of doing what we tell them to do. If you're someone in the finance sector, you obviously understand how the market works. You understand how things go up and down. You can instruct these agents to follow the same mindset and perspective that you would in that sense, so it would follow your own behalf. The reason we don't call these things conscious sentient beings is because they obviously can think on their own. We call them agents because they act on our behalf. Since they act on our behalf, we need to make sure that we are implementing them with the knowledge that we would act on and solely on that. What does this mean for the RGV, right? Now, the RGV has been a sector that's behind. We're not a technology hub. We are the last ones to see the impact that this has on Silicon Valley. As of today, I haven't really seen any companies going in a full transition to AI or thinking any way of implementing it. Having conversations at my workplace, it definitely sounds like it's not even in the conversation. And that's at Region 1, right? That's an organization that covers a lot of school districts across Texas. You would think they have heard about some method of implementing agentic use to improve the workflows, but there isn't. The only conversations that are going around is enabling contracts to pay these companies more, which brings in more irony. Why are we paying these companies more to protect our data? Cybersecurity professionals and individuals, we obviously want to own our things. We obviously want to own our data. That's what OpenClaw is capable of. There's no reason why we should be paying these companies who already don't even perceive us as human beings just to secure our data when we can do that ourselves. When we have the mindset, we have the capabilities, we have the tools, we have the mindsets, and we can transition that. I hope that the RGV becomes a hub that can lead by example with this, that catches on early, that understands the hope of it, and clings onto it and doesn't stick to the fears of it, because every other industry is going to follow suit. It's not just like Silicon Valley is going to adopt it and it's going to die out. It's something that's coming for every industry and every part of the world. There's currently a race with the US and China. There's talks between both of those parties back and forth. The American side obviously wants to beat out them, with the implications being that the Chinese are going to be able to produce more output than us. I'm not too interested in that conversation, of course. What matters is that we make them work for us and we improve on them and we make sure that they're not used for any malicious use, of course. Now, for all of you guys and the ones who are cybersecurity professional minded, what this, in my opinion, means that we need to be more cautious of who's using these things in our network. The capabilities of them can become a double-edged sword. If we have a malicious actor within our network and they get access to the gateway, they get access to the command line interface and be able to interact with it, that brings up a huge red flag, because these tools, depending on the way you program them, already have the capabilities to do whatever they want. So if someone has access to your command line, imagine that 10 times worse with your agent, who can act on that person's behalf just by instructing it to tell it what to do. A simple prompt into a compromised network could be something like, hey, tell me what vulnerabilities they are. And the codex or the coding tools of that agent could then analyze the code base of the organization and report back to the malicious actor upon all the vulnerabilities the company has. Of course, for me as a computer science senior, it's a fishy situation. I got into AI or computer science because I wanted to program. I wanted to build things. I wanted to have a job. And that obviously doesn't look like it's going to be a reality, right? Especially down here in the Valley with the low jobs they are for software development. And the entry barrier is harder than ever. New grad positions aren't even in the question. We're seeing junior and senior developers look down on, these new grad positions. And I think more than ever, there needs to be a shift from learning how to code to learning how to manage code bases, learning the the engineering perspective more than anything. That's what is most important. The code and the tools and how we implement it is no longer the main driving factor, but rather what we can manage off to the AI, the processes, the brainstorming, the flow diagram, the way we handle edge cases. That's more important than ever. That's where we need to be putting our focus in as an engineering department, as engineer-minded people who want to continue in computer science or any engineering degree that has to do with coding and things that AIs can already do. We need to focus on the implementations and the protocols these things follow more than ever, because that's what's going to happen. We're not going to keep writing code if the AI can do it at a scale much faster than us. There would be no point to the shareholders. There would be no point to pay us then. Go ahead, Jerry. That leads to the QA. Before I do a little demo, I would love to hear some questions. I am not as knowledgeable as I wish I am. I'm just chronically online and have spent a lot of time researching and understanding what this whole thing is. But if anyone has any questions, I'll try my best, of course.
Appreciate it. So in a earlier slide, I saw, I don't know if it was like a YouTube video, a thumbnail or something, but it was how to make so much money with OpenClaw that it feels illegal.
As I was saying earlier, you scroll through X, you scroll through media, you'll find tweets like this, right? The first one I have here is Peter Steinberger's announcement to join OpenAI. That was a big announcement in the community from an individual who wanted to keep this project open source to now joining the guys who are running the whole thing, right? That was a splash in the market. Mind you, this was all in the past 2 weeks. And these tweets have like 1 billion bookmarks and everyone's talking about it, and it's just insane, right? How to make money so fast with OpenClaw, it feels illegal. Now, these tweets and articles are not as clickbait as you think they are. If you take a good read, the way that these people are using the agents is because it makes sense to them. What I mean by that is the same way they would give these tools and capabilities to an employee of theirs is the same way they're adding these capabilities to OpenClaw. What I mean by that is some companies that have TikToks are now creating a whole pipeline for OpenClaw to follow, from the video generation to adding the captions on the video to looking at TikTok's database and analyzing what videos are popping and hitting that can get them the most views, using that data to figure out how to make the video that to make sure it gets views, and then posting it. That's what OpenClaw can do. These agents can do all of that, from creating the video to adding captions on it, to finding what songs are hitting the best on TikTok, to posting it, to replying to comments. You now have a whole social media manager that can do that. And that's how people are generating income into their businesses. That's only one example, though, of how they're doing it. And I'm pretty sure that's what this person made this article about. This one right here from Matt Schleight, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Now, this was the guy who actually made Motebook. He said, I didn't write one line of code for Motebook. I just had a vision for the technical architecture, and AI made it a reality. That was a statement that backfired on him, of course, right? We saw Motebook get compromised. We saw an individual infiltrate the database. They exposed API keys. They exposed emails. They exposed credentials. This person was able to access the whole database of every person that signed up for Motebook only like a couple days after this post was up and made. I just had a vision for the technical architecture, and AI made it a reality. These are the type of things we don't want to follow and pursue. We don't just want to leave AI to do everything. This whole conversation wasn't in my interest to tell you to just let go and let AI do everything, but rather follow its steps, follow what it's doing, understand what it's doing at a level, and keep on implementing whatever you think can work out for it. Now, the reason I'm being vague is because that can mean so many things for everyone else. You have different professions and different things we're interested in, of course, but the same thing still applies. We can't just let AI do whatever it wants. We need a human in the middle. We need a person who knows, who has a brain, who has intelligence over the subject matter, that can kind of safeguard it and guide it into a direction that can produce usable output without vulnerabilities, without bugs, without being able to access their database and whatnot. And that's the tweet that this person did, actually. I gained complete access to Motebook's database, the AI agent social network, in only under 3 minutes. And he wrote a whole blog post article about it.
Yeah, we got the answer before the question. That's crazy. You read my mind. Yeah, whoever's next.
Any other questions?
So I read a little bit and I followed the same gentleman. He's saying to put it on an actual unit on its own and not to have it like connected to any other files. Like recently there was somebody on Twitter that, so they played it like they were the person. They said, well, can you send me $265,000? I said, sure. And
Yes.
literally emptied out his wallet.
Yeah,
You know,
you're talking about,
and maybe people can follow through other people's mistakes, right? That's how wisdom's created. So
right.
the best thing is what they're saying, and run it on its own. And right now they're saying to run it on Mac Mini, right? Like so it can run, through the M models. Like the processors are much better.
Mm-hmm.
So I started messing with it, and it took me like 6 hours just to run it like one agent, because of course I don't know code, and it took me forever. And it just kept on like talking nonsense and talking to itself. And I went, hold on. So I finally figured it out. I'm running one agent right now, but I'm running on something small because the tokens come out small, which is like a Pi, 16 gigs at that. So, I mean, the tokens come out pretty okay, but truthfully, it's meant to run its own, right? Like, is that really the truth on the streets? Like at the moment, don't let it access everything. Definitely don't let it run on your computer. Like it has to be its own individual server per se, right?
Yeah, it's honestly all up to you. The main method that people are saying to put it securely is install it on a VPS. So a virtual private server, something complete is
what I did
from your own
like,
home network. Yeah, something that's not even near you, right? You don't want to.
I'm afraid it's too powerful.
Now, however, to rebuttal against that, there was actually a meta researcher, an Asian lady, who came out recently, about 2 days ago, probably yesterday. In this case, she had full access. She allowed OpenClaw full access to her computer. She told it to summarize some emails, and this person working at Meta, obviously, those emails are important. Yeah. The agent immediately started going, "Hey, I'm deleting it. And she kept going, "No, don't delete it. And the AI is just like, "Already deleted it. Done." So what she had to do was run to the computer and unplug it, and that's the solution to stopping these AI agents whenever they misbehave on their own, right? That's obviously not something you can do in a VPS. Well, you can, right? But if you have it closer to you, you can unplug it faster than navigating to the dashboard and clicking the buttons for it.
Here you go, bro.
Thank you. So if I wanted an agent, what should I do to make sure like I don't get in trouble with it?
In trouble with it in what regard?
Well, like if it starts doing funny things, what should I do?
Well, if you mean by like
deleting emails, or I don't know, maybe it hacks my neighbor's Wi-Fi or something.
The way I understand it, the main driving factor off the bat, right, without writing rules, without manipulating these markdown files that instruct your agent, is choose a good model. So we have a whole suite of models we can choose from the cheapest ones being 4L Mini from OpenAI side and Haiku from Anthropic side. And the more expensive models, the ones that they have been flagshipping, are the ones that are more secure for these things automatically off the bat. So if I were you and I were installing OpenClaw, I would only reach out to the biggest models that are available at the time. Now, Anthropic and OpenAI aren't the only companies that are offering these models. You have Chinese companies who are using a method called distillation, which is essentially training their own models based on the outputs that these flagship models from the US side are being capable of doing. What that means is that their models can run a whole lot more cheaper with the same capabilities as the US models. And there's a lot of glorifying about it because of the cheaper cost of it, with the same security capabilities on top of it.
Would that be the chipset?
I'm sorry?
Would that be the chipset you feel?
What do you mean by that? I'm
From
sorry.
the Chinese? What you just mentioned?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with chipset.
Like, in other words, like, are the chips better than ours?
Oh, no, not at all. The method distillation, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. What they're doing is accessing API keys from Anthropic, accessing their network, accessing the tools that they have, giving them prompts, right? So they're running a whole suite of examples of like edge cases and use cases that they could use, analyzing the output that these flagship models are doing and copying that same behavior onto their own. That doesn't depend on the hardware, that depends on the actual implementation and the structure that it thinks. So think about it like if you had a good teacher and you wanted to teach a student, right? The better the teacher, the better the student's gonna learn. That's the same method they're applying. They're using these flagship models to train their cheaper models to have the same similar output, and that completely reduces like the hardware in the middle, right? It becomes more of a software thing than a hardware thing, which became a real big question as to like, then why are we burning so much water? Then why are we building so many data centers? Why aren't we doing this? And Anthropic actually about last week released Sonnet 4.6, and it's like a 1/4, I believe, of the price of Opus. And what that means is that these companies are doing the same thing to their own models. When Anthropic found out that China was doing this thing to their own models, they obviously made it a problem for national security, for the advancement of AI companies in the US becoming more prominent and advancing more than the Chinese perspective. But it's kind of ironic that they're doing it to themselves, and they've already stolen data from millions of people that these models are being trained on. Why are they getting mad at another country or another entity doing the same thing to their tools, right? It's kind of like pointing fingers at the bad guy when you're the bad guy yourself. That's how I see it in a way. Of course, that's China and the US. It's political, and there's a lot of problems against that. I'm obviously an American and whatnot, so I'm in the interest of American security. But yeah, to answer your question, it's much more of a software thing and the way it's implemented and the logical processes than hardware and chips.
Good point, but so the front tier models are capable of passing restrictions, and they're also capable of prompt injecting, right? And also they're expensive.
Yeah, well, there's a reduction of like the prompt injecting capabilities, and there's a reduction of the capability of the vulnerabilities it has because of the time it takes to think, the time it takes to run its process. The cheaper models are more of like a greedy perspective, and programming being greedy means like you want to get to the solution as fast as possible, and that's what the cheaper models do. The more expensive models need to compute more, need to take more time to process their input and decide what to do, and that's why the security reinforcement is more on the flagship models and the cheaper ones.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Have you ever used OpenClaw at all?
Yeah, I do. I have it on my machine. I shouldn't, and I don't have much things I'm worried about, right? Now, there's a certain file that you can create on OpenClaw. They've implemented security patches and a whole lot of features into it. The only way it can access your credentials is if you allow it through a file, right? If you create it on your OpenClaw configuration. I don't have that set up. I just have it to do agentic tasks, and I'm gonna do a demo, but the way I wanted to structure it wasn't rather like what I want to do. I kind of wanted it to make it more of like an experimental approach to talk with you guys and to do what you guys want to do, because you guys are the ones obviously interested in it. And I kind of want to use it as like another Q&A session. Like if you have a question, like, can it do that? Let's just test it out. And I run it on my machine, right? If you guys want to transition onto that right now, or if there's any more questions.
I did have one other question.
Yeah.
This is more regarding on like spreading my own idea, but I also just wanted to get like a second opinion.
Right.
if I were to create an AI that can mimic a server, just an online service server that has my personal data with my personal scores, with my own personal high scores and like, I don't know, recordings of my own. Is it possible to do that with AI without also accessing to the actual online services that some companies have, like let's say Sega or Microsoft? Is it possible for the AI for them to actually build a server from the bottom to the top and mimic that with my own data that doesn't actually affect their actual service?
I like that question because it's actually something that I'm doing right now. At my job, like I said, I had the opportunity to transition to the software engineering department. I don't have access to the database. You can blame Armando for that. He's a cybersecurity guy there, and he won't give it to me, right? So I can learn and learn how to code it and whatnot, and the infrastructure. Now I have another friend of mine that works in the company, and we're actively trying to find that out, right? If we can just on the splash screens of them, on the dashboards that we have access to as employees to see these records, if there's a way to kind of create the same database or whatever. Now that's obviously not something you'd have access to if you didn't have the same credentials as him and I, that we can see the database from a technical perspective. We need to see a database in order to find information about users and customers and whatnot. The security risk in that is, if I actually use the same names as the database, obviously I wouldn't, right? Because I want to just use it for practice, so I would use fake names, but kind of get an idea of the infrastructure. What I don't know right now is if the AI is capable of just going into the server and mapping it, right? And trying to figure out how exactly it's configured and whatnot. That would kind of be the same kind of protocol you would take as like a hacker or a cybersecurity individual-minded person.
No, yeah, because I was more thinking about the infrastructure besides just more on the building blocks rather than the actual like personal data and stuff.
Right.
Personal data, of course, that's obviously very illegal. I don't condone it, of course.
I want to say naturally that the path that it would follow is the same path that a hacker would take. What I mean by that is if you're a hacker and you know how to, and map your way into a network and get the infrastructure of it, if you know the commands, if you know the same process you would take, you would just instruct this AI agent to do the same thing. That's essentially what that person did this morning against Mexico, right? They spoke with this AI agent across months, right, to lower its security, to lower its idea that, hey, this guy might be a hacker. But he was training this model to become a hacker the way he knew how to hack enterprises and corporations, right? Until finally he decided to press the button to enact on it, and it did, right? Now it would have acted different if he gave it different instructions. It acted upon his will. It acted upon his instructions, right? So I hope that answers your question a little bit. It only goes as far as your own capabilities as a person, like if that's trying to map it out.
Well, first of all, thanks for the presentation. It's very interesting. I have a quick question. What would you place the importance on improving your own technical expertise, learning new tools yourself, or improving the way that you think about how to prompt AI, like improving your vocabulary or specifically learning a specific language, not like a programming language, but words to tell it, prompts to tell it. How would you rate that in importance, or in, I guess, like in when you're trying to learn more about this? Would you try to improve more your technical side, knowing what tools do, or which tools do something, or just kind of learning how to talk to the AI agents so that you're able to get things out of them?
Yeah, of course. I think you definitely need a technological foundation to build upon to even get this running, right? The reason these things were so accessible in the earlier years was because it was as simple as logging into a website and chatting with it and prompting it. And the prompting, right, it only goes as far as your English, as far as the way you construct it. That doesn't take as much, I feel, brain power as if the actual technological things that you're putting into it. What I mean by that is to set it up, right? To get it configured in your machine. It's been a hassle. It's an open source project. It's been a lot of manipulating files in the command line, right? To even get that thing to run and spawn sub agents and follow a process that you expect it to do, that requires much more of a technological Python, IT fundamentals and networking, right? In order to SSH into it, if you want to connect another device onto it and whatnot. And obviously cybersecurity protocols. I'm not very too much minded on cybersecurity protocols, but I feel like if I did, I'd feel more capable of adding to it and feel safe in doing it. The reason I haven't really been messing with it is because I'm not too minded in that direction, right? I don't know how to secure it enough to the level that I'm comfortable with giving up access to everything. So I wouldn't run it on everything, right? I feel like that's the same mindset anyone else that doesn't have the confidence in their technological skills would have. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool,
no,
cool,
yeah.
cool. More questions? Cool. So what should I demo? What do you guys want to see? What was that? Okay. The GUI? Sure. So the way you get it running after you have it installed on your device is as simple as running OpenClaw. Sorry, I can type. Gateway run. What this is doing is starting the gateway being the central hub that directs the whole model and every single interaction that's coming in from the network. There you go. So it's now running. We see that my agent model is Codex GPT 5.3. That's a flagship model, right? I wouldn't run this model. I wouldn't run OpenClaw with a cheaper model, honestly, because I'm just scared of the implications that it can have in my system. So once we get that running, we can do OpenClaw terminal interface. And here we are. Right here is a conversation I've been having with it. I was trying to construct a checklist, right? And a procedure checklist. I probably shouldn't be showing this, right? But there's nothing really hiding except for my directories, right? But what I did here, actually, what I remember from this conversation, what I wanted was a procedure checklist that followed the same thinking methods that Claude does. What I mean by that is there's a application that Claude released called Cowork. It's in their own native application. If you instruct that model to do documentations, right, you ask it to create a procedure PDF, it'll make it real pretty. And that's something I wanted to copy over to my agent in OpenClaw. So what I did, I went to Claude's chat window with Cowork, and I said, hey, can you explain to me how you make these documents? Give me the whole full technical rundown of how you do this, right? Without telling it, I want to copy it, but I just explicitly told it, I want to know your full mindset, right? What are you doing at each single step to create this document? I got that result, pasted it into my OpenClaw, and I was able to create the same type of looking documents that Claude does. I'll go ahead and open that up here, but I'll stop sharing my screen for a second. Now, I feel like this is kind of a use case that's really like not showing its full capabilities, because this is just a simple document I created. But the main point I want to make here is that I was able to make this PDF not only with the tools that it was able to do, that it's able to use, but now follow a flow that another better company has implemented into their own, product. And they've spent engineering money, they spent brain power into constructing this process. And all I did was just copy it from them and add it to my agent. And that's the reality that we're living in, right? So right here is the checklist it made. It was fully specified and whatnot, and it looks real pretty. And before this, it was just making something really ugly and not at all what I wanted it to. But I'll hide away from there because I don't want to review any company procedures. But yeah, like I really don't know what exactly you guys would like to see. I can think of things, but I'm more interested in what you guys want to see out of it, if there's any. Yes, Julian, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I can try. So
Maybe not something that check a price. Yeah, something like that. Yes. On a 4 terabyte drive, it's like $900.
So I'm thinking here a simple query, right? Go on Amazon.com, check the prices of a 4 terabyte hard drive, and add it to my cart. What it's able to do, it opens up a local host server to Chrome. Okay, sorry. It manipulates it by an extension. There's two ways of using. I haven't really interacted with it and set it up the way I wanted to, just because I'm scared of the security risk that it can do. But there's another tool that you can add, which enables it to open up the browser on itself, right? But I wouldn't want it to do that. I only have it enabled as an extension, which is right here. And as soon as that's on, it says, bench. Okay. Yeah, I'm not too sure how to exactly get this configured right like that, but I know it seems kind of silly, like when you're explaining all the things you can do, right? You can't even do it. But like I said, I just don't want to add it to my machine because I don't want to. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, dude, I set this up a couple days ago, and this past couple week they dropped like 40 security patches, breaking the whole infrastructure. You have to manually go in there and reconfigure everything, set up your local host. Exactly. And so I'm like 3 updates behind. I'm pretty sure that's why it's not working here. But that doesn't take away from the capabilities that people are doing with it, right? You can create a whole bunch of sub-agents with it, open up multiple browsers and whatnot, allow it to web fetch. Now, it does have web fetch capabilities. Like if I did look up the newest AI news as of today, it obviously would. And obviously any other AI company that you can access on the internet would have the same capabilities. The difference here is that my query of searching up the internet here is only running on my device. The model is getting the input, it's understanding the query, and it's only getting filtered through my device. If you accessed OpenAI or Anthropic's website, that query would go through their side. And why would you want to tell them where you're going with your internet? Yeah.
Yeah, but you're using codec,
Right.
right? So it's still hitting their servers, right? And locally run codec by yourself.
I could if my machine was capable enough. I only have 16 gigabytes of RAM. I think like
Codec is closed source.
it is code source. You're correct. Yeah. Right. You have to use like Minimax or any of these Chinese models that are more open source. To rebuttal against that, the context that flows through these models, the context history, that's only local on my device. The actual action of contacting OpenAI servers, that action is only the query. So the thinking process of the model doing this is running on their side, their servers, but it's really hard to actually like look into it and see what it's doing unless you stop the whole program, and that would cause your thing to crash and whatnot. So yeah, you're right. It is hitting their servers first, but they still can't do much with that information. All it's doing, it's thinking, it's creating a chain of thought reasoning that they can see, right? And that's obviously still a risk, but with OpenClaw, you can run that model locally, which is not something you can do. Right.
So it's sending literally everything out to it's still going through.
Yeah.
Because it keeps a continuation.
Correct. Well, that continuation, the context history, that window is on my device. It's not on their side.
Yeah, but they get a copy of it.
Of course, yeah, they still get a copy of it. Yeah. No, you're right.
But we're back at the first spot.
We're back at the first spot. Yeah, absolutely. But if I had a better device, if I had a M4 Mac, right, with 32 gigabytes of RAM, I would be using that. That's why I'm not using this as my main driver. I'm using still Claude, right, for schoolwork and for other reasons. I don't have a capable device running it locally. But if you're an industry, if you're an organization that wants to implement this, why would you want to hit Open API or Claude servers first, right? You'd want to buy the hardware, buy the infrastructure to run it in your enterprise, right? Have everything local. But that's a very good point. You're right about that. So right here, this is what I was able to find out today. Trump, of course, Google, and other things. But yeah, that's what it was able to do right there. Yep. Yeah. That command is OpenClaw dashboard. What that does is opening a nice little GUI interface here for you to see. You don't have to just use it in the command line. And this left tab here on the side allows you to manipulate all the settings from it. So your agents folder, your configuration, the logs that you have had with it, the conversations, to evaluate it, to find out if it's behaving the way you want it, the documentation for it and whatnot. This little tab actually lets you change the channel, the session. What I mean by that is OpenClaw has the ability to like create different sessions for your context. So you could have one session dedicated only for work, another session for school, right? The same way you would have it on the left tab on the online platforms, but all on your device, and you can, you know, have fun with it, create separate folders for it. There's a whole community using Obsidian for this. What I mean by that is the Obsidian note-taking application, they found out to use it with the command line, and that whole flow of connecting files together is a whole lot more robust and easier for the agents to use than markdown files, because what Obsidian does is like does a hyperlinking to things that connect around it, which can open up kind of like a neural network for your agent if it knows how to bounce from one idea to another without having to like completely rewrite its context history, if that makes sense. But this is the dashboard you can see on the web when you have it running. If I open up a Discord here, I have a conversation here with it. Right here, I asked it to give me a security audit of my system. This is one capability of it. It can do. It has a special command that it runs called doctor, and it can go through a whole configuration and find out what's happening behind your scene. Right here, I have my credentials directory, permissions to open and whatnot. And sorry, this is the command that you can run with it natively. And what that does is, you know, kind of hard code your configuration in a way that you don't have to really understand what's going on. I'm not too knowledgeable on it. I'm not too invested into it, just because I have school to focus on about as well. But it's something you can do, definitely. If I spend more time on it and, you know, was able to do it, it could do it. Like I said, the whole conversation wasn't really about like the OpenClaw, because just as fast as it's progressing and changing, OpenClaw could be gone by next week, right? You have other platforms coming out faster and could possibly be better. The more secure we can make these platforms, the better it can be, right? The main thing I wanted to talk about and stick with you guys was that it's transitioning from just chatbot to agentic use. And, you know, that's the whole main conversation that I wanted to bring about.
That's your local host conversation. So what we're looking at is your local host conversations that you've been having. You're just using Discord as your GUI as opposed to the web browser.
Of course. So
That's hilarious.
I went on Discord's developer platform, made a bot, gave you an API key that it can talk to with my computer, and now I'm on a channel with it. And so right there, like I just talked to it about it on the command line about my Amazon task, and it's telling me about the same thing here.
And if you open up Discord on any other browser, you're now able to see this conversation.
Yeah, of course. So I can.
So now Discord has this conversation. In its servers. Okay.
Yeah, and that whole age verification with Discord. So yeah, if I open my Discord app, it's right there on my phone. So I imagine I could have this running at home. I'm on the road and I have this coding task or an assignment, and I can just talk to it on my Discord app and be like, "Hey, do this task." And
Very creative.
It'll be the same interaction I would have with it on my command line. Now, Discord isn't the only connection you can have. You can have Discord, Slack, Telegram, your own phone number. You can give it a phone number, and it could text people on your behalf. It could text you, could remind you of things. Those are all things that are very real right now and are able to do. Like I said, this whole tool is transitioning from the company owning it to now us owning it, and these connections are just an example of that we can communicate it in any way we want, right? Whether it's Discord, I think I saw yesterday they're now adding like a voice mode feature. It's now native to it. I haven't updated it, I don't have it, but now you can just talk to it right from your mic, and that's how, you know, you can vibe code if you will. On the road, yeah, driving.
I guess random question, right?
Yeah.
So we've been seeing this over the past few weeks that a lot of these models sell like subsidized subscriptions, right? You're paying $20, $100, $200, right, a month for like basically unlimited inference. While you're hosting this yourself, right, how do you decide, right, like how much money you're willing to spend, right, to take on the hit of the inference, right? Because even if you buy like a better Mac, right, let's say it's like $2,000, right, that's still quite a investment, right? If, like you said, what if like OpenClaw is not a thing, right, in a month from now or 2 months from now? Like, I guess like what's a decision, right? Because like even so forth now, like Anthropic has like been cracking down for you using their subscriptions outside of like Cloud Code or their specific tools. And I assume like if you're using Codex, you're probably using it through one of their subscriptions, right? Like, I guess while it seems cool, right, that you're gonna own all of this, I think like at some point money becomes a factor.
Yeah.
Right. And like, I guess like, how would you manage that? Right. Like, I guess you wouldn't run it on there, you would run it locally. Yeah, correct. Right. But like, when you connect to them and then you start running their API line, processing, that's what they start charging you. It tells you
the token costs.
Those are their like high-end like apps.
Yeah.
It's a difference.
It's the token cost and the hardware. Those are the main factors. So the hardware running like where you have this thing on, right? My MacBook is just as capable, or I'm sorry, a Pi is just as capable of running this as my MacBook. That obviously can't run the model. If you had a model able to run it, it could run there. The main cost comes from the API usage, right? You spawn up an agent and then it spawns up another sub agent, and that's not your decision anymore. It's now acting on its behalf. If you go on X, there's a whole conversation going on there about how to make it better. I mean, you can literally just type in, I spent like an ungodly amount of money on API tokens. Here's how you don't do the same thing I did. That's something I didn't want to talk about really, because I wanted to keep this central to what it actually is, right? What it's doing. But yeah, there are ways that people are finding out how to lower the token cost, especially because what OpenClaw does, there are cron jobs, there are heartbeats. What that means is that these jobs can run automatically whenever you want. And heartbeats understands the context in the current moment and acts on your behalf based on what it thinks you'd want it to do. What I mean by that is, say I have a meeting on my calendar and it's like in 15 minutes and I've been, talking with it on another task, it'll understand the context, it'll understand that my meeting is in 15 minutes and be like, hey dude, you've been working on this for a while. You should probably lock into this meeting or whatever. The only reason it was able to do that was because it has the context that I have a meeting at that time, and it runs an automatic task to do that. Those tasks are able to be passed off to cheaper models, right? And that's how these people are lowering the API token usage, by assigning the agents with specific models that they know that model is capable of doing at the level they want it to do. So like I said, there's a whole engineering perspective up to it. Understanding the model usage, the API cost of it, and the implementation of it is all a factor into how much it's going to cost at the end of the day. I hope that answers your question. Sure.
I can kind of add on to that. I've been on a 4-day Claude evaluation session. I have it linked up to Anthropic's max subscription, similar to how you have it, and it tracks the usage, and it's currently tracked up to $400 in token cost if I was just going directly through an API token.
Right.
So that's the way to do it. And once they eventually ban access to it, the goal would be switching to localized models or something like min-max. I think you mentioned it's a really good alternative.
For sure. Well, Google actually the past couple of days restricted their OAuth access as well. So if you had a Gemini subscription, you were able to log into OpenClaw and use the same rate limits that you had in your account with them, right? And then Google was like, hey, everyone's doing this, everyone's using it, our servers can't handle this. They obviously saw that what the customer is paying is not matching up to what they're getting out of it anymore. So they cut off access. My outlook right now, as I'm seeing it, is Peter Steinberger joining OpenAI. OpenAI is kind of lenient with it. They're the only US company that's go ahead, do your thing with it. You can use our models, our subscription. You don't have to just use an API key. That's why I'm running it with them. And Peter Steinberger being the man who created this whole thing, right? I was working for them. It makes sense why they're going to use it. And then what I meant by OpenClaw, we don't know if it's going to exist in the future, is the implication of that hiring into OpenAI, right? Are they going to make their own platform then? Are they going to make something that everyone can use? Because this obviously isn't something everyone can use. I can't even get a download, getting the demo going without already having problems with it. But if they do that, then what's the point of doing all this, right? What's the point of configuring it right now? But of course, we're early investors. We're interested in it, and we're going to see what it can do, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's an interesting project to observe the fact that they're making it all open source. Everybody can watch its inception to how it's becoming purchased, it looks like. There's a joke like, yeah, you should just have it make the tools that you need. Have it make like another OpenClaw that's not OpenClaw.
Yeah.
And something that's a little bit more exclusive or doesn't have the additional tooling, which is just everything's like a threat vector. Claw Hub is like the threat vector for most people. Like exposing your Clawbot instance to a live network is obviously the #1 risk that you can have. You were running it locally, so you're less at risk than most people. So it's fairly safe to play around with it. Obviously, don't give it access to your database and all that stuff, but if you do give it access to a test database, it's a duplicate of your original database.
Of course.
But yeah, using it safely is definitely a good recommendation.
Definitely. I want to show you guys the commands that this thing has, just to kind of get an idea of what capabilities it has as it stands right now. Just talking with it on the TUI and putting /, right? You have your help, your status, you have access to your agents, your sessions, your models. The way it thinks, like I said earlier, the API cost depends on how long it runs. Longer thinking means longer processing, longer evaluation, longer am I doing this right or not? And then a whole lots of other actions you can do on OpenClaw, with a whole lot of them not even being able to be accessed on Cloud Code, which is another terminal interface agentic tool that you can use. And this is kind of just like that separation from what Anthropic's doing and what other companies are already doing, but rather ours, and we can manipulate it and add tooling that they haven't done yet and whatnot. Before it was like we were catching up to them, and now Anthropic and Cloud Code are now adding the same tools that OpenClaw does. I think today they already dropped like the ability to, the ability to continue the same command session on on Cloud Code on your phone if you have the Cloud app. And that's something that's already capable on OpenClaw, right? And yeah, I don't know what else to talk about. I'll go ahead and close out then. I hope you guys enjoyed.